George Russell was born on the 15th of February 1998, Kingsland, England. He would grow up in Cambridgeshire with two older siblings, Cara and Benji. He began racing karts in 2006 and over the course of the next 3 years became the MSA British Champion and British Open Champion. He continued to win multiple karting championships until he graduated to single-seater racing in 2010, racing in the Formula Renault 2.0 series. He had a strong rookie campaign, finishing 4th in the overall standings with a highlight of the year being a podium at the Red Bull Ring. He also contested for 2 rounds of the Euro Cup Formula 2.0 series, winning the final race of the season at Jerez. In 2014, he raced in Formula 4 machinery, entering the final race of the season in a 4-way title decider. Winning his 5th race of the season, he became the Formula 4 2014 World Champion. As a result, he would win the McLaren Autosport Award for that year, beating out fellow racer and friend Alex Albon. This gave him a dream opportunity to test the McLaren MP4 26 F1 car at Silverstone later that year. In 2015, he graduated to the FIA Euro Formula 3 Championship, where he would be racing for Carlin. He had a promising rookie campaign, finishing as runner-up to Charles Leclerc as the highest placed rookie of that season. His season highlights included winning the opening round at Silverstone and taking 2 further podiums at Spa and the Norris Ring. He would spend 1 more year racing there before finally moving to GP3. In 2017, he raced for ART Grand Prix in the competitive GP3 series. He would blitz the field that year, becoming the GP3 champion with just 1 round to go, having taken 4 race wins, 9 overall podiums, and 3 pole positions. It's during this year that he would officially be announced as a Mercedes junior driver. With this, he got his first taste of Mercedes F1 machinery when he tested the W06 at the Algarve International Circuit in April that year. After 1 more test where he would drive the W08, he would debut with the Force India Formula One team to drive for them during the first practice session of the Brazilian Grand Prix. In 2018, he would race once again for ART, but this time he would be racing in Formula 2. He would compete in arguably one of the most competitive F2 grids we've ever seen, and would be racing against future F1 drivers Lando Norris, Alex Albon, Nick de Vries, and Nicholas Latifi. But this apparently did not faze him in the slightest, as he would finish off the season 68 points ahead of nearest title rival Lando Norris on 287 points. He would finish off the year as the F2 champion, having taken 7 race wins, 11 podiums, and 5 pole positions. This would make him the 6th rookie in history to win the championship. Others who've achieved this are Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Hulkenberg, Charles Leclerc, and as recently as Oscar Piastri. During this year, he would be promoted to the role of Mercedes reserve driver, testing once again that year in F1 machinery with Mercedes as well as Force India. On the 12th of October 2018, George Russell would be announced as a Williams Formula One driver for the 2019 season. His teammate would be the returning F1 racer Robert Kubica, and he would be competing against fellow rookies Lando Norris and Alex Albon that year. He would make his Formula One debut at the 2019 Australian Grand Prix. But although the prospect of driving an F1 car might have been exciting, one thing that definitely wasn't exciting was the Williams FW42. It would become clear very quickly that season he would be driving the slowest car over the course of the year. In qualifying, Russell ended the session in 19th place, finishing only ahead of his teammate. In Q1, Russell's best time ended up being a shocking 2.3 seconds slower than the fastest Q1 time, but he did end up qualifying 1.7 seconds faster than his teammate Robert Kubica. He would have a clean race, but would end up finishing second last, only ahead of his teammates. Williams struggled to develop their car to get anywhere near the rest of the midfield, and if not for one crazy rain-affected race, they would have finished the season with 0 points, with Robert Kubica scoring their sole point at the crazy rain-soaked German Grand Prix. But make no mistake, Russell was easily the faster of the 2 drivers over the course of the season. Over the 21 races that season, Russell would out-qualify Kubica at every single Grand Prix, and he would finish ahead of Kubica 15-2 in the races that they both finished. Russell's standout moment of the year had to be during qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix. During a completely dry Q1 session, he would qualify P16, only being 53 milliseconds away from qualifying for Q2. What makes this a standout moment and quite impressive is that even halfway through the season, he was still driving the worst car by a mile. But somehow he managed to out-qualify three extremely experienced, well, two experienced, sorry Lance Stroll. Those experienced drivers being Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, a young Lance Stroll, and of course his teammate Robert Kubica. But it was for sure a spark of hope for the Williams team and would be seen as a glimpse of George's potential. In 2020, Russell would stay on to race with the Williams F1 team, alongside a new rookie teammate being that of Nicholas Latifi. The Williams FW43 was considered a slight improvement on the previous year's car. However, it still remained the slowest car over the majority of the season. The first race of the season was one to forget for George, with him qualifying P17 and having to retire from the race due to a loss of fuel pressure. But just 1 week later, at the Styrian Grand Prix, he would pull off a storming performance by qualifying P11 in dreadfully wet conditions during qualifying. Later in the season, Russell would finally find himself in the points-paying positions. Given that he had never scored an F1 point before, this was a crucial moment for him. After a safety car had been brought out, he would be running in P10 with only a handful of laps to go, but he would make a crucial error, spinning and crashing into the barrier under the safety car. This would be equally heartbreaking and embarrassing for him, but it surely left him only more determined to finally score those Formula One points. Russell would bounce back strong over the course of the season by qualifying in Q2 9 times during the season, and even managed to qualify in Q3 once, but that one time he wouldn't be driving for the Williams F1 team. Due to Lewis Hamilton falling ill with the coronavirus, George Russell would be called upon to replace him in the dominant 2020 Mercedes car for the Sakir Grand Prix. This was George's opportunity of a lifetime, a dream chance to once and for all prove to the F1 world and Mercedes that he had what it took to win in F1 and that he deserved a Mercedes Formula One seat. In qualifying, he began by doing his talking on the track, qualifying second and missing out on pole position by just 26 milliseconds to teammate Valtteri Bottas. In the race, he would ace the start, beating his teammate off the line to take the lead of the Sakir Grand Prix. He would maintain the lead after a safety car restart on lap 7, and he would run comfortably in the lead until his pit stop on, ironically, lap 63. In an unlikely mistake, Mercedes would accidentally fit some of his teammates' tires onto his car, meaning that George would have to pit for a second time in the race, leaving him in P5 on the safety car restart, with a lot more work to do to win that Grand Prix. But this wouldn't stop him from storming through the remaining cars until, with just 10 laps to go, he would be only 2 seconds away from overtaking race leader Sergio Perez. But then, disaster would strike once more, as he would receive a rear left puncture and would be forced to pit once again. This would force him out of contention from even having a chance of winning the Grand Prix. He would end the race in P9 with the fastest lap, scoring 3 championship points, but George was still heartbroken. You have to imagine, this is a driver that's been stuck in the worst car, arguably, for his entire Formula One career up till now, and now he's been given a chance to win a Grand Prix, and he was easily had the opportunity and speed to do it, but it got taken away from him. It was out of his hands. But one thing was for sure, George had proven the entire weekend that he had what it took to win that Grand Prix, and he had proven to be a mighty and speedy prospect for the future of the Mercedes F1 team. 2021 would be his most important year yet, as his and Valtteri Bottas' contract were due to expire at the end of the year. So if he wanted that Mercedes seat that year, he would have to give it everything he had. Tensions were high at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Russell would find himself finally in the points once again with the Williams. Then on lap 32, he would attempt a daring move on Valtteri Bottas to earn him P9. This wouldn't go his way again, as he would lose control of the car once again, sending him and Valtteri flying into the gravel trap, both cars damaged and out of the Grand Prix. This was the last thing Russell needed at that time. A hefty crash plus some questionable comments after the race towards Valtteri Bottas made it a weekend to forget for George. But he would continue to race on, becoming well known for his qualifying heroics over the course of the season, including 13 Q2 appearances and 6 Q3 performances, all of them done in a Williams F1 car, which was once again one of the slowest cars of the season. But he would finally get his first points in a Williams at the drama-filled Hungarian Grand Prix, where he would finish a career best P8. Rumors surrounding him and the Mercedes race seat would become very prevalent heading into the second half of the season at Belgium. Russell would make it into Q3 in a rain-soaked qualifying session at the Belgium Grand Prix, with high hopes of a special result or potentially scoring some points. But he would shock the F1 world, driving a fearless lap to qualify in second place in a Williams ahead of 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. Other high points over the season were qualifying P8 in a dry qualifying session at his home race in Silverstone, as well as another crafty wet qualifying session where he would qualify P3 in Russia. On the 7th of October, Mercedes would announce George Russell as the Mercedes F1 driver for the 2022 season onwards. Russell would finally achieve his dream of driving for the race-winning team, a team that had won 7 Drivers' Championships and 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships in the previous 8 seasons. The anticipation would only build for what was to come in the 2022 season. But in 2022, Mercedes would have a surprise downturn in performance. They ended up with a tricky car that barely challenged for victories and couldn't consistently fight for podiums over the year. But Russell stayed determined, becoming known for his early season consistency by finishing the first 9 races in the top 5. This included a maiden Mercedes podium in the 3rd race at the Australian Grand Prix. He would get his first pole position at the Hungarian Grand Prix, although he would fall behind his teammate and would end the race in P3 with another podium to his name. His season was not perfect, however, with some low points being a disastrous race at Singapore, where he would finish 2 laps down and in last place, as well as crashing into Carlos Sainz on the first lap of the Austin Grand Prix. But his breakthrough weekend would come at the Brazilian Grand Prix, where he would fend off the charging Lewis Hamilton to successfully win the Brazilian Grand Prix, taking his and Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. Russell would finish the season in 4th place, a career best, and would notably beat out his legendary teammate Lewis Hamilton by 35 points to round out a very impressive first outing with the Silver Arrows. Though it was surely not the season Mercedes had expected and were hoping to have, 2023 is a new year for George Russell. And if Mercedes can produce the right car, Russell will no doubt be in with a shout of potentially fighting for his first Drivers' Championship. But for that we will have to wait, as only time will tell what is in store for the speedy Brit George Russell himself.